live and in color, amongst other things. Good evening, or afternoon as it were, and welcome to Chaos tonight, or this afternoon, or for you folks over there in the land of the rising sun, good morning, or actually it's afternoon for you folks now, or at least noon. So for those of you fixing your breakfast or your lunch, welcome to Chaos tonight. I want to send a hearty salutation to each and every one of you fine folks that turn up here every single week, right here on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or even Thursday night Chaos, or Chaos tonight, or whatever you prefer to call it, or however you prefer to spell it, because there's some people that just take a lot of liberties with the spelling in the comment section. But I want to say hello to everybody in the comment section, and if I'm noticeably a little down key today, that's just because just the kind of day I'm having. It's kind of a quiet Monday here in San Diego, California. Sun shining outside, and I couldn't be more miserable. But I want to thank everybody. Before we get too far along, I want to remind everybody to fuck Joe Satriani. If you weren't here for last week's Monday Night Chaos, I definitely did my part to lambaste the great Tom Petty of Heartbreaker fame about some sort of restitution, a copyright settlement last week. And someone, they know who they are, they're the chat leader this week, as I found out, brought to my attention that the Joe Satriani, guitar virtuoso Joe Satriani, or the people that represent the catalog of Joe Satriani, sued a group that some of you may have heard of, Coldplay, and I was unaware of this, and I asked that person. He knows who he is. He's having his breakfast over there in Japan. He said, well, what do you think about this? And I had not heard about this, and I looked into it, and I said, motherfuck this. That is just a series of chord changes. You cannot own a series of chord changes. And Joe Satriani, all 60 years of him, should have been in the business long enough to know that you can't do that. I'm really tired of all, I hate to come off as a curmudgeon, but I know that I do. I've been asked over the years by some of you fine folks, you guys with your questions, and we'll be taking questions shortly. I'll get to the rest of the introduction in just a second, but I want to lambaste guitar players really quick. I get asked quite frequently on this program and elsewhere. A lot of people say, who are your favorite guitar players? I fucking hate guitar players. And bullshit like this has driven me even further in the direction of hating guitar players. Rhythm guitar players, lead guitar players, and harmony guitar players. And I have few gripes against bass guitar players, but we can talk shit on them another time. But lead, rhythm, and harmony guitar players, which I have partaken in all three of those activities in a number of occasions, or on a number of occasions, as it were. And I feel that they are all needy, greedy, self-important little twats that don't understand that there is a world beyond your 6 strings and your 24 frets. And adding more strings is not helping your case. But and this further makes me despise guitar players, because guitar players have this really interesting egocentric way of exuding themselves. I've tried my hardest not to do that, and that's probably why I haven't made a whole lot of money playing music. But yes, Joe Satriani can suck a dick. He's been running around looking like a freshly circumcised dick for a number of years, so it's about time he roll over and suck an egg. For more, I'm sure you can go to the internet. The internet will tell you everything you want to know about the business bullshit between Joe Satriani and Coldplay. Again, as we do each and every week here on Monday Night Chaos, I want to offer an early warning that there will be some coarse language this afternoon or this evening. So thank you for joining me. And also, before I get too far along, I want to remind you that there is a box down there that used to be used to describe the video that's on the screen, and now it's used for any number of things, usually to play a little rib on you. But down there is some information if you want to get a hold of me in any way, shape, or form. You can find me on the social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, and I've been asked if I'm on Instagram. I am not, because I can't figure out. Even my sister-in-law, she tried to explain to me what's the big deal about Instagram. And it's similarly to how no one can tell me what the big deal is about the PlayStation 4, that sort of thing. So I guess I'll get on there when I figure out what the hell it's for. In the meantime, I can bitch at you guys just fine through YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. And I'm on the Twitch every so often. That's usually somebody told me, why don't you do more stuff on Twitch? I'm like, I don't know what you do on Twitch. Apparently you do stuff very similar to this, but it works. But I've yet to see anybody show me the way, so maybe we'll get around to that. But yes, go ahead and click the links down there and see what else I'm up to, because I'm always trying to be entertaining for you fine folks, because you deserve it. You work hard, you play hard, you do a lot of things in your life, and you are underappreciated for it. I know that because I'm underappreciated for it. But that having been said, we work hard to make sure that everyone has a nice time. So, and I know that some of you like to record this program to listen to later on. So I want to say hello to Ed and any number of other people that record the program for later and listen to it. Some people listen to it in their car on their way to work. And for those of you, I'd like to let you know that Yellkaos t-shirts are available at 8-bit. No, there's no t-shirts available. I'm not one of those people. But we are going to be taking your questions, and we'll talk about a couple of things here this afternoon or this evening, because depending on where you are, some people it's afternoon, so just slightly afternoon. But if I'm rambling, that's because we don't have a whole lot to talk about here tonight. But I will be taking questions because you people always have great questions, and you always want to know things. So there's that. Anyway, let me scroll through the questions really quick. While I'm trying to find something to respond to, I want to welcome all the people who've never seen me live before, that have seen these in reruns. Welcome, and please feel free to drop your questions down below, and I'll do my best to answer them. I don't know, you guys always have some questions that you assume a lot that I have this great database of information up here, and I don't always have a remark or a response for some of the things that you guys want to know. So I apologize in advance if I don't have an answer to your question, but I'll do my best to do some research and form an opinion. Because we live in an age where the term opinionated is being used very much as a pejorative, and I'm trying to turn that around. If you have no opinion, you have no reason to exist. So, unless you have no opinion of a certain person, which is entirely possible. There are slews of mediocre, mundane people strewn throughout this planet. You're going to come at, well, probably a lot of them in your life, and you're just going to have to deal with these things. So, but anyway, I wanted to talk about something before we get too far along. This is something that has to be talked about, that I've been meaning to talk about for some time. You guys may or may not know, but I am an instrumentalist myself, as I just, plugged just a second ago. I am I hesitate to call myself a rock and roll guitar player, but I am a guitar player, a guitarist, if you will. I don't call myself a musician. I'm an entertainer that happens to be able to, know my way around the electric guitar. And something that I want to talk about, because every now and again, you find folks, the guitar playing public, always wants to know what my opinions are about this pedal or that amp or this thing or that thing. And the one that comes up a lot that I'm really shocked that it does is this guy. This is the Boss HM2 heavy metal pedal. And this turns up in the comment section of a lot of my guitar videos, which I don't do as much as I used to, and I've been meaning to get back into that. But sound reinforcement is an issue, and well, we can explain that. We can talk about that some other time. But I mean to, I really want to, but I've done videos and I have not been pleased with the sound. And I figure if I'm not pleased with the sound, I know you're not going to be pleased with the sound, and then why do it? So that's why. But anyway, the Boss HM2 heavy metal pedal. I do own one of these. Some people have asked, and I don't know if I ever made it clear, but I am showing you right now. Yes, I do own a Boss HM2. This pedal is amongst certain guitar players is legendary, absolutely legendary. And this pedal is supposed to be what I feel that the new or more recent Boss pedal, the Boss Power Stack, actually does. This is supposed to emulate a Plexi type or Marshall JCM 800. It doesn't. It really has its own kind of thing going on, and if people would recognize that, it would be very useful. For those of you that are in the know, you can look at the knobs, the settings there, and see that I do have it set for the what they call the Gothenburg sound. If you want the old entombed Edge of Sanity sound, you take all the volume or all the dials and you put them all the way to the other end, all the way to max, all the way to 100% saturation. And therein you will find the Edge of Sanity's sweetest death metal guitar sound. And there's been a few people, I think I told somebody that I do happen to own that pedal, and they said, oh, you should do a demo of it. And it's like, well, there's other demos of it on the internet. But first and foremost, I want to get why I haven't gotten around to it. To get that sound that you guys are expecting to come out of this thing, for that small group of people that know, this is a pedal that really likes it with a big fat tube amp, and I don't use tube amplification. But there are ways around that. It just requires wants a really loud amp. Also, you can get that sound best when you have a guitar that's set up with really high output electronics, very high output pickups, and I don't use high output pickups. At least, I guess a lot of people would suggest use a high output active pickups, and I don't use active pickups. So that was my explanation. And just to show off, yes, I do own the I suppose venerable Boss HM2 heavy metal pedal. So there's that. Now let me go through the questions here really quick. Let me see here. We have somebody new apparently, True Holy Rune, who's never been here before, and he wants to ask me a question. So Mr. Holy Rune, whenever you get around to it, please feel free to ask me a question. Let me see here. I wanna find a good question here. The pilot, who's here every single time, wants me to bitch and complain about the music industry. Yeah, the music industry is a bunch of bullshit. The only thing more bullshit than the music industry is the people who make the musical instruments. If you haven't known, I think I bitched about this a couple of weeks ago, but I have now been inundated with all the coverage of NAMM, the National Association of Music Merchants, their trade show in Anaheim, California, where I come from. For 2015, and they peddled a whole bunch of the same bullshit they've been peddling for the last 30 to 40 years for the most part. I'm mostly looking in the direction of the two corporately influenced American-made guitar producers. They know who they are. And then there's some other things. There's some great technology that will be completely ignored. But yeah, there's that. What was I going to say? I wanted to... who was I going to lambast the fuck out of while we're talking about record labels and shit? I was directed to, through a video I saw this morning, I was directed to, I didn't know that the folks over at, and notice I didn't say fine folks, just folks, the folks over at Metal Sucks, who call themselves the suckiest website in metal, which... I don't know. I don't know if they're the suckiest, but they could definitely be #1 contender in the steel cage with metalinjection.net. And I'm sure there's others. There has to be others. If you know anything about heavy metal, it's just like any other group, a few winners and a whole bunch of losers. And I mean that in varying degrees, and different criteria too. But I was watching, they did something called the Week in Review, and I was led to believe that this is something they did on a weekly basis. I only found one of them, and there's this big fat fuck named, I won't name names. And I don't want to, just totally lambast this program. It was a nice idea, and they really tried, but there was just some segments that I'm sure would be really funny to the habitual users of Blabbermouth. What used to be the National Enquirer of heavy metal is now the Jerry Springer Show of bullshit alternative rock and roll. Heavy metal has really become a secondary thing on Blabbermouth. Well, let me make no mistake about this. The fine folks at Roadrunner Records who run Blabbermouth, they don't give a fuck about heavy metal. They don't give a fuck about you. If that were true, then Nickelback would have been gone from that label for a long time. But this big fat fuck on this YouTube video, and I hate to use generalizations like that. That's my anger talking, and maybe the liquor. I don't know for certain. But and don't call me an alcoholic, because if you know anything, you'll know that alcoholics attend meetings, and I've got shit to do. Sometimes involving driving, but you don't get caught. Hey, you didn't, cop didn't see it. I didn't do it. Setting a terrible example here this evening. Anyway, there was this guy, the commenter in this video, went on to badmouth some band who went on a, no doubt through their very own pity party on some Google Hangout about they won a Battle of the Bands. And I didn't know that people still entered Battle of the Bands because I don't know. I mean, I figured I would assume that School of Rock killed the whole Battle of the Bands thing. But this band, I forget their name. They won a Battle of the Bands and secured a record contract with Sumerian Records. Folks, if you know anything about the music business, Sumerian Records is a group that you want nothing to do with. This is a group that has all of the integrity and all of the reliability of World Championship Wrestling. If you don't know what I mean by that, let me phrase that in your terms. It has all of the reliability and respectability of the Ouya group. Remember that? Remember that? Exactly. And this poor kid bitched and complained about how the record contract they were offered by Sumerian Records, and I've done business with Sumerian Records myself, so I completely understand where he was coming from. Said that it was they wanted to be lumped into a very long 5 or 6 record deal, which and going to show that they would be this much royalties over this much amount of time, and this guy didn't think it was a fair contract. And granted, no, that didn't sound like a fair contract. And then the big fat fuck who was making this video lambasting this poor kid because they found they were, being roped into a contract that was completely disadvantageous to their career, especially with the way that the music industry, especially with the way that independent heavy metal is going. The nerve of these fucking record labels, because folks, let me back up for a second. If you're trying to make a career in rock and roll or heavy metal music, a record label is the worst thing you could ever do for yourself. Not only is there no music to be made or no money to be made, joining a record label, let alone an independent heavy metal record label, you're going to owe money. And I'm not kidding. You think that I might be doing that for comedic effect, but no, you will have negative progress by the time all is said and done. A record label is interested in you churning out a product. And not only that, they're going to invest money intentionally. I'm convinced that record labels are doing this. They invest money in records that they know won't make any money because they know they're not going to have to pay for it. And after the band has to, they don't have to pay a band because of however much money. And then they get to write it off in their taxes as a loss. You didn't know about that. That's smart business. It's incredibly shitty. And if you had any morals or ethics, which I don't, you'd say it's wrong. But realistically, you wanted to make money, and these guys are experts in making money. And if they can do it through, litigation or bankruptcy court, they will. That's where the music business is today. What was I talking about? But, this big fat fuck decided to lambast this kid. And sure, this kid was griping over things that they really didn't have to get involved in. And then went on this fucking tear about how, well, this is a business and they're trying to make money. And fuck you, you fucking piece of shit. Because you just went and showed yourself that you are not in favor of heavy metal. You are not in favor of the artists that break their asses and work their fingers to the bone. And, goodness knows how they pollute the skies of this country, running these fucking vans back and forth across this country to tour for no apparent goddamn reason to play in front of nobody. But now you're essentially saying that it's the record labels who make this all possible, when the record labels are just a fucking logo that may or may not have an office, that are only interested in being middlemen to the hard work of young men and women all over this country and all over this planet. Fuck that shit, and fuck metalsucks.net. We're fucking everybody this evening, I swear to God. So yeah, there's that. Anyway, let me see here. We want to talk. Everyone's pissed off at Gamergate. Well, that's why we don't talk about Gamergate. People I found that people want to be entrenched in drama, and it's the same reason why, this internet drama is what's killing the game industry is not mine or yours. The hobby will live on forever, but this talk about sales figures, I don't care. A lot of people want to know why the Hate Bit podcast hasn't been around, is we don't have a whole lot to talk about. And anytime we try and segue into something else, people get upset. But, I understand where everyone's coming from. I am burned out with where gaming has been because I don't care. I really don't care. I love to talk about games, and we can chat about games all day long, but the industry can suck a dick. I'm really sick and tired of these websites trying to make me feel bad for fucking kids who wanted a shortcut and didn't want to get a real job. All right? You know, these kids bitch and complain about the way things are in the industry. It's like, yeah, go work at fucking McDonald's for nothing an hour. Go work at Walmart and see what life is like. You and your fucking art school degree bitching and complaining about how, you know, you're not making as much money drawing cartoons. You got to do what you love. There's a lot of people who never got that. And now I'm going to sound like a cranky bastard who doesn't understand because I've never been in the industry. I've been offered. I've had friends who work in the industry. Hey, you should come and do, and you know, a couple of friends of mine have asked, hey, you should come and do composition for this game. And I've had a chance to meet with a couple of people that do music in game studios. These are the biggest twats. You think that heavy metal and guitar players are fucking twats? Holy shit, these game designers makes me want to pull my fucking hair out. So that's why we don't talk about all this stuff and all this nonsense surrounding it. And this Anita Sarkeesian cunt. I really wish you guys would stop giving press to these twats that just want press. They've got nothing to say except put my big nose in front of each and every, you know, one of the eyeballs that you represent. It's not healthy. Stop it. Let me see here. Going through the questions here. Sigma Sean wants to know what I know about the final Club Nintendo rewards. I wouldn't know, Sean, because the motherfucker crashed as soon as I got on. I woke up this morning, and every morning, I'm like every other fat-ass American. I look to my phone, see what's new, before I come to my desk here with my PC and see what else is new before I get my day rolling, you know, while I have my coffee. And what was the site? I think Nintendo Life or somebody. One of the Street Pass groups that I kind of pay attention to. Dropped the list, and I'm like, all right, let me go check this out. And I jumped on here, and as soon as I jumped on, the fucking thing crashed, and there will be no Club Nintendo happiness for me for a little while. What am I going to get? I'm going to get probably some digital games and a calendar, because a lot of the premium rewards they put on there, I already own in physical form. So it's like, you know, shame on me for, you know, for buying things. But I'm going to get some games. I'm going to get Doc Lewis's Punch-Out, that WiiWare game, because I missed out on the chance to get it. It just slipped past me, so I'm gonna get that. And I wrote it down. I think I'm gonna get like Eco Shooter Plant 530, and you know, a couple other things, maybe Chibi Robo. So we'll see, and I'll let you know as soon as I get those things. But we have to wait until it's online, you know. But let me see here. God, everybody's here. Everybody is here. Lewis Williams, who I've been trying to talk through a natural harmonics summit, trying our best. I got to start doing videos. That, you know, Lewis Williams showing up reminds me that I'm sorry if I'm all over the place. I just, God, there's so much frustration, and I try and, you know, get so much, you know, through so much of this in 1 hour, and I'm bouncing back and forth here. So if I seem a little jumbled, I apologize. But I gotta do some videos to show off some techniques, because Lewis Williams was having a horrible time working on an Accept song. I forget which one it was, the one with all the natural harmonics. And I was trying to explain pinch artificial harmonics through text, and that's a rather advanced technique, as anyone in here will tell you. So to describe it, you know, with words is kind of difficult. But I will find a way to explain that, Lou, one of these times here. Let me see here. Let me see. Venom Ram wants to know my thoughts on Starrcade 98, which was Goldberg versus Nash, and its aftermath in the wrestling world. I haven't watched that one in quite some time, Starrcade 98. Can you fill me in on the ramifications there of Goldberg versus Nash? I think that's the one where Nash booked himself over Goldberg and ended the streak. I'm of the mind that we are so far removed from WCW that really the things that happen in WCW only really matter to the internet and the people that want to banter on back and forth about it. Very little, I think. I think that WCW did more harm than good. Kevin Nash going over Goldberg. Let's face it, Goldberg was a fucking cartoon character, and somebody had to end the streak eventually. I don't want to speculate though. Please tell me. Please give me the ramifications. What it is specifically about that main event or that pay-per-view that you think has significance, and then I'll try and comment on that because I don't remember a whole lot about it. I remember there was a jackknife powerbomb, or they outlawed the jackknife, or I don't remember. I really don't. So sorry about that. Let me see here. Cliff Fitter tells me that chicks dig guitar players. That's not true. If it were, I would have been swimming in vagina a long time ago. But, well, there's been vagina that I could have swam in. There's young kids. Should I be making that kind of reference? No, well, I might as well tell you now. Young kids, you're going to come across vagina. Or for those of you of the other persuasion, or one of the other persuasions, there are going to be orifices that'll be put to great use. In eBay terminology, you would call it well worn, and they will be more than you can handle. So you're going to have to get used to that. If you don't know what I mean, you'll find out soon enough. And if that was too much information, I'm sorry. This is life. And this is the Yellkaos program. So again, thank you for tuning in. And if you don't want to do that, well, that's what you're into. But yeah, if chicks dug guitar players, I mean, I got a wife, but she doesn't love me because I play guitar. I think she loves me because I fix pasta and play Mario Brothers. So learn to fix pasta and play Mario Brothers, and you too can be this happy. What else here? Blah, 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 blah. Mark Andre says, use Chrome. I was using Chrome, and the motherfucker crashed. Club Nintendo, people are upset that it's going away. The fucking thing never worked in the first place. I mean, of course, the website interface. That could just be just too many damn people using it at any given time, which would show, server strength and server speed. But I did use Chrome, and it still crashed on me, so I'll wait until, later tonight or tomorrow or something. Let me see. Kit171, who's here every single week, or at least he tries to be, asked me, how is the Metal Kazoo album going? I'm not making the Metal Kazoo album just yet. I don't even own a kazoo. But I might get myself a synthesizer with a kazoo sound on it. I know that doesn't count, but I'll work on it. I've got other, I'm actually, you guys didn't know this, but I'm actually writing another Dracone album right now. I was working with my sequencer this morning, and one of my synthesizers that I do my writing with, and I stumbled across some old riffs. So now I'm actually writing a new Dracone record. So if you guys didn't like Dracone when you heard it, which I don't know if I've represented any of that stuff in a few years, but there is a new Dracone album being written right now. Since we're all kind of spread apart, we can't do as much as we'd like, as quickly as we'd like, but we hope to crank it out pretty soon. Some of my solo material actually is going to make its way onto that record, hopefully. So there's that, if you wanted an update on what I'm doing. If you guys aren't familiar with Dracone, that's a thrash band that I've been playing with for a very long time now, and the only band that I consider myself a permanent member of. I'm not sure if I've said that or not before, but that's what I'm doing. And God, I was thinking about this before the show came on. I'm going to break off topic for a second, because one thing, I don't know if you guys would ever been interested, but originally on my channel, I was going to do a day in the life of following me in my musical exploits, but now I don't do music with a group as often as I used to. So, and a lot of metal guys don't like you turning a camera on them. And I trying to explain, is like, how do you expect to get over? And it's like, oh, well, my music will win them over. It's like, there are hundreds of thousands of people making music. Do you really think your song is going to make all that much of a difference? If you guys remember when I was in Crepitus, Ryan Colgan from Crepitus never wanted to be on camera. Never. He's like, I turn that fucking camera off. I was like, you know what? No one gives a fuck about you, you skinny prick. Make them care. So, anyway, once again, these are just things off the top of my head. Just brain droppings. Um, God, this thing moves faster. You guys just, like I said, it just takes on a life of its own in here. True Holy Rune says, "What is my favorite classic guilty pleasure game?" I think I've been asked that before. I don't have any guilty pleasure games. I don't feel guilty about any of the games I play. I can say that with absolute certainty, with absolute honesty. I don't feel guilty when I play the Barbie games. I don't play them for very long because, let's face it, there's not much there. I don't feel guilty when I play Super Princess Peach because that's actually a really good game on your Nintendo DS, if you don't know that one. Kind of uncommon these days, I found out. In fact, one time I was at Toys R Us and I found a Super Princess Peach. What was it? The Super Princess Peach sleeping bag sleepover kit. It like had a thermos or something, and a sleeping bag and a pillow. And I almost bought that for my drummer Tim for his little girl. And then I didn't because it was like $15. I'm like, 15 bucks, just for something that I don't care about that much. I kind of regret it now. But no, I don't have any guilty pleasure games. I just play games that I like. I can't say there's any game I'd be embarrassed to admit that I play. And you shouldn't either. There's no, this must come from a heavy metal mentality. There's a lot of people that ask me about guilty pleasure music, and I don't have any guilty pleasure music. If you're a fan of a series I used to do here on the channel called Full Metal Vegas, that illegally actually features a song from Katy Perry, the lady that dressed like Bam Bam Bigelow yesterday. Her Waking Up in Vegas song, because it's a catchy damn song. I don't have any guilty pleasure music like that. I wear that shit on my sleeve, and if you don't like it, you can cram it with walnuts, ugly. That's the way I feel about it. I don't have any guilty pleasure stuff. But thank you for your question. Let me see. Addie Cakes wants to know if I like any non-metal music. I love all music, as I was just starting to talk about. I love all music. The only music I'd say that I don't listen to, there's, my favorite kind of music is good music. That's always been my speed. If you, there's been a lot of music that I've heard that is just a bunch of BS songs or tracks that were an excuse for a guitar solo or for some kid to bitch and complain about Jesus or the way that their parents treat them or something like that. That's not music. That's bitching with audio. Excuse me. And I don't care for that sort of thing, but I like all music. But I don't listen to as much hip hop. There's so much hip hop that I've come across and rap music that I've come across that is just bitching and complaining about shit that these guys really don't actually feel, about niggas and bitches and hoes and pull out my gat and smoke some weed. And it's like, they might know about smoking the weed, but none of these guys have never pulled out a gun and shot anybody. Some of them have. And, the ones that have aren't going to talk about it because that's called evidence. That's called an admission of guilt, and you don't do that. So that's the one thing that there's a lot of rap music and hip hop that I really like. And a guy that I really wish my brother would come on the show, but he doesn't like. He's one of those fucking people, one of those assholes that won't have a camera in front of him. And he could tell you his feelings about rap music. But I like good music. If you put some songs in front of me, I feel indebted to heavy metal because without heavy metal, I don't think you'd know who I am. I can say that, and without video gaming, you wouldn't know who I am. I've had opinions about shit long before those things were really a part of this channel, but I feel that's the reason that heavy metal comes up so much. Is I feel I owe not anything to the metal scene, but to the metal style, because without that helping me break out of my shell, you would not know who I am today. So there's that. Let me see here. Let me scroll down here. Let me see. Places to see and slags to be. That's a day in the life. Yeah, just like that. And shit like that. Yeah. What else here? Psycho DX says the Battle of Bands is whoever sweeps first. that is a shame. You know what's funny? I want to talk about sweep. Was that on my lip that whole time? Fuck. You guys don't tell me anything. I noticed that. Once in a while, I because I live in San Diego, or as my good friend Vladimir once called it, Bland Diego. When I want to shop for musical stuff, and the internet just won't do, like it won't in most cases, which is why I refuse to believe that retail is being undone by online sales, because they don't have anything. Or maybe I'm just too picky. But occasionally I'll have to go to the Guitar Center, which is awful. It's awful to go to Guitar Center. But I notice that before I go shopping, I got to do the same thing everyone else does. I walk over to the wall of guitars and see what other bullshit toy guitars they got on the wall. Sometimes they'll have something decent. Most of the times they don't. And I'll pick up something. Oh, this looks kind of nice. Oh, this is busted string. Oh, this one has a Floyd, so it's all fucked and it's all out of tune. And then I'll find something good. I'm like, all right, this is all right. And I'll try and find an amp. And why do they put tube amps on the floor? I don't know. But I'll find an amp that I can kind of screw with and get good sound. Like, okay, I like that. And I'll, tinker, dun, 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 and, oh, this sounds pretty good. And the second I perform a sweep arpeggio, I am swarmed with dudes like, was that a sweep arpeggio? How do you do that? That was amazing. And it's like, I did a whole bunch of cool shit right before that, and you guys are just slobbering over sweep arpeggios. If you don't know what sweep arpeggios are, they're melted chords. Why that's impressive at a high rate of speed, I have no idea. But that's one thing I've noticed when I hear a lot of guitar players and guitar centers, like, oh, okay, you really like scales, and you like to play them like to make it sound like an angry bee. Good for you. That's my bitch about sweep arpeggios. But let me see here. Shadow Choso wants to know Super Metroid or Metroid Prime. Those are very different games. I like them both for different reasons. I like Super Metroid only slightly more because I played more of the 2D Metroid styles. I really enjoy Metroid Prime. I haven't played all the Metroid Prime games, but I played more 2D Metroid games than I have 3D Metroid games. So I'm going to lean towards Super Metroid just because, also it's on the Super Nintendo. Everything on the Super Nintendo was great. I'm not saying the Super Nintendo was the greatest system of all time, but almost everything on the Super Nintendo was great compared to the Sega Genesis. Oh, that's unfair. But yeah, it's unfair. But hey, I'm unfair, so that's something you're going to have to live with. Kit171 wants to know, do I have a favorite Master System game? From the Sega Master System? Yes. Probably the first one I ever played, which was Outrun. I find, I've always been of the mind that it seems that first-party software 9 times out of 10 is always better on a console system, a game console. And since most of those games were Sega games, and the first party, the people that design the hardware usually know how to make good stuff for the hardware and know how to exhibit the strengths of the hardware, I've always appreciated the Master System the same way that, I really appreciate well, I guess much like the Nintendo Wii U, largely supported in a first-party sense. So, but as far as the Master System, I'd have to say Outrun. That version of Outrun is just great in its own special way. I know that might be easy. It's not a very, not much of a gem, but there's limited games on there. But the version of Outrun on there is outstanding. And the worst game that I've played on there, when compared to predecessors, was the Master System version of Afterburner. Afterburner is just stinky. It's a nice try and everything, but just I guess the tech wasn't there for what they wanted to do. And Afterburner is really what not Operation Thunderbolt, what Thunderblade was trying to accomplish. It was the Afterburner was very much the fruits of the labor that was Thunderblade, because Thunderblade being largely a tech demo. Let me see here. Frosty Tim wants to know if I have any opinions on Nintendo's new affiliate program. I think you mean that they're splitting the ad revenue with content creators on YouTube and the rest of the internet. I don't care. I'm not one of those people, and I never will be one of those people. Something you can say honestly, and why you don't see advertising on this channel, as far as I know, if there is any, please let me know, and I'll get to the bottom of that, is that I am not a billboard. This is not a place where I'm not advertising other people's goods. I'm happy to talk about things that I like and things that you like, but this is not a place to hawk somebody else's wares. So there's that. Let me see. If I'm going all over the place, that's just because this thing moves at its own pace. So sorry. And I lost it again. Was it Shadow Chozo? Want to know if we have anything to announce about Pissing the Livestream. Yes, Pissing the Livestream coming very soon. I think I talked about this already, but not everybody watches the program. The Hate It podcast is around. It's alive. Razor Fist and I have been talking and trying to get Alpha Omega in, but he's a busy guy. He's a proud papa these days, so he's got a lot to do, a lot on his plate. But I'm working with some new talent and trying to get people ready because I want to bring the best product, I shouldn't say product, but the best podcast that I possibly can to the air. I've been taking this time off to listen to a lot of other podcasts. I'm not going to name names, but a lot of other podcasts absolutely bore me to tears. Mrs. Yellkaos is here. Hi, Mrs. Yellkaos.
Hi, everyone.
She just got home. Hello, darling.
Hi.
Hi. The show will be over momentarily.
No, I just didn't.
Oh, well, there's a sign on the door.
Okay.
Oh, well, I guess the sign wasn't clear enough. But see, proof. I got a wife. And she works hard for the money. So hard for the money. What was I talking about? But I want to bring the best program that I possibly can to the airwaves. And I've been listening to other podcasts, and I go to sleep. There's some friends of mine say, hey, listen to this podcast that I was on. And I go to sleep. It's just a whole bunch of guys who talk to their nose and it's really a shame to see Nintendo faltering and sales not being what they could. And no, mind you, they're going against the juggernaut that is the mobile market. Fuck you. We've come to this point where suppose gaming journalism was really just carnival barkers rattling off and regurgitating whatever press releases they were handed. And now we have podcasts that are rattling off and regurgitating the regurgitated, rattled off bullshit from the websites. And it's just, it reminds me very much of, it's like when you, it's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever done this. You've been to a fast food restaurant that allows you to serve your own drinks or allows you to pour your own drinks. And my brother used to do this thing, and I call it swamp water, where he'd put a little bit of each thing in there. He puts even like Nest tea. He'd put iced tea and Mountain Dew and like Dr. Pepper Red Fusion when they had that, if you're old enough to remember that. And it would just look like a gray liquid. And I said, you're not supposed to drink anything that's gray. And that's what the podcasts come off as. It's a whole bunch of this bullshit that's not good for you in the first place mixed together to where it's just a big brown and gray mess, much like your annual Call of Duty releases. But that's something else. And so I'm trying to sidestep those pitfalls. And there's a lot of people that say, I'd love for you to do one of these, or I'd love for you to do one of those. And it takes time and scheduling. And I hate to sound like a bit of a whingy palm, even though I'm not a palm, but a whingy American. But I want to bring the best, presentation that I possibly can. So that's why. And it goes to show though that people have not forgotten about us. And I thank you, each and every one of you. And we will be back. It takes time. But I assure you, just like when you would wait each and every year for the Undertaker to make his big return, it'll be worth it. I could be totally overpromising on that, but Kit171 wants to know if I have or like the GameCom. The GameCom sucks. It was a nice idea, and it meant well, but like most things with the Tiger name on it, it's a big pile of crapola. Fatality65 wants to know, do you think Anita Sarkeesian? Stop talking about Anita Sarkeesian, but just this last time. Versus Alpha Omega Sin will never happen. Well, she might be slightly bigger than Alpha Omega Sin, so no, of course it's not going to happen. It's a battling of personalities in the social media space. It's just like all the BS that goes on CNN. It's not real. It is all bullshit to make you believe that progress is being made. Morgoth did nothing wrong wants to know if I've watched any Lucha Underground. Is that a promotion? I thought I've seen something called Lucha Underground. I don't remember what it was. So I'm going to say no for right now. Kit171 got some Fender branded headphones. Well, good. I think those are actually made by Akai, and they just put a Fender name on them. Almost everything with the Fender name is made by somebody else. For those of you that like to buy that Fender Carnauba Wax for guitars, I would like to inform you that is actually just McGuire's Carnauba Wax for your car. And it's much cheaper if you just buy it at the auto section at your local department store, or you go to an auto parts store. It's the same automotive grade shit. It just has a Fender name on it. That's what most stuff is nowadays. It's just, they think that you don't have the internet and can't figure this out on your own. Let me see here. True Holy Rune says, what are your most annoying things about newer consoles? I don't really newer. I guess you mean PlayStation 2 and on. I guess the most annoying thing is the fact that all the games are the same. They're trying to get into the movie space and appeal to testosterone heads, when that's not who really buys their product. So I don't understand it. And once again, I don't see the draw to the Xbox One or the PlayStation 4 yet. I think it's been a big, complicated mess, and I can't explain it either. So I think one of the most annoying things is people wantonly defending companies that don't give a shit about you. They don't care about you. They don't care about your allegiance to the Sony brand name. They don't care. They would burn your mother if it would make them a little bit of money. So stop defending these fucking corporate cretins who don't care about you. And I'm sure you can see a Nintendo Wii U right over my shoulder, and that's because they had the games that I wanted to play. Nothing more, nothing less. That's really what it boils down to. I don't get behind anybody's mantra or their jargon or their rhetoric. Again, I'm grandstanding. I'm sorry. What about the Amiibo bloodbath? Are people upset about the Amiibo? This Amiibo thing is really cute. I kind of went on a tear about it last week, but excuse me. Oh, whew. Goodness gracious. We are using real live whiskey right here on Monday Night Chaos. People with the Amiibo, my goodness, I can't wait till this thing settles down. I don't care about the Amiibo that much myself. I have two right over there, Mario and Kirby, which are the really easy ones that come by apparently. I'm shocked and amazed by this. And I'm surprised that this action figure interconnectivity thing with video games has lasted as long as it has. It's not going to last for a whole lot longer. But yeah, people just killing each other to get these things. It's insane. Okay, now. Let me see here. I want to. This thing's acting up on me. Sorry, guys, if I'm pausing, but this thing is just being a pain in the ass. Is the Ghostbusters 3? Oh, Lone Wolf Warrior, who's here again, says, is Ghostbusters 3 the potential death of the franchise? I want to make this clear. Ghostbusters is not a franchise. Ghostbusters was a funny movie that got out of control. I have to make that very clear. People ask me, people have been asking me already, do you think there needs to be a third Ghostbusters movie? There didn't need to be a second movie. The second movie more or less regurgitates the first movie. As much as it pains me to admit that, I'll watch Ghostbusters 2 because I own it, and it helps feel a little more complete after you watch Ghostbusters 1. But does there need to be a third one? No, there didn't need to be a second one. There didn't need to be a cartoon series. There didn't need to be a second cartoon series. The cartoon series were there just to prop up the sales of the action figures, which were not very good quality action figures. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. They're a slight bit better than the Death Clock action figures I showed you a while back, but they weren't very good action figures, you know, and I had some of them, and I remember they were a pretty shit quality. But I'm also not one of those guys that's going to buy a functioning proton pack either. I thought about that, and I'm like, those things look heavy. Fuck that noise. I don't have the room in my house. You know, I don't have the room for the guitars and video games I have, much less for a fucking proton pack that doesn't do anything except make you look like a tremendous nerd, but a well-prepared nerd. And Dylan 8837 says, what do you think about the petition to get Odorous Urungus into Mortal Kombat? I think it'd be kind of cool. I don't know if he has any significance, because Odorous, Gwar in general has never been a band that has garnered that much. I mean, I think that the most notoriety they ever garnered was being on the Jerry Springer Show. So I think it'd be cool. He would fit. He'd look a little bit like who's the one guy, Shao Kahn, just with a bigger wiener. So I think it's cool. If he gets in, he gets in. You know, if he doesn't, I'm not that upset. You know, I mean, you might as well put, you know, if you're going to go that route, you'd be just as well putting Randy Blythe in it too, because Randy Blythe is responsible for real deaths from what I've heard. So there's that. You know, and if you really want to do it, you put Glenn Danzig in there too. Well, let me see here. Lucha Underground is a new promotion. Well, thank you. I'll look into that. They've got a bunch of AAA guys. Well, AAA, we all know about AAA. But let me see here. Yeah, someone said that the Amiibos are like the Cabbage Patch Kids or the Beanie Babies. I don't know if it's quite gone that far, but yeah, I think it's really just a lot of people sticking these things up their ass thinking they're going to make a fortune on eBay, and the bottom's going to fall, a lot like what they're doing with retro games right now. And retro games, I don't want to talk about that anymore. We're not talking about sales. Fuck all that noise. But what are you going to do? Somebody said, have I seen Wrestle Kingdom 9? That was the one with New Japan, the one they did, and I have not seen it. I like New Japan, but I haven't gotten around to see any of the New Japan pay-per-views or any of their new stuff. So, you know, I'll get around to it. I like New Japan, especially because I don't speak fluent Japanese. I'm learning Japanese, but I don't, you know, I'm learning Japanese so I can play all of the Fire Emblem games. But I like New Japan because I don't know if they're trying to put over some stupid angle. Let me see here. My thoughts on the death of Monty I don't know who Monty is, but I will look into that. K-Bone wants to know my opinions on G.G. Allen. G.G. Allen is the guy that shits in his hand and puts it on his chest. You know, I regard him much like I do Iggy Pop. Musicians or people who make music, like Wendy O. Williams, people that are more regarded for their entertainment stunt work than for who they are as people and for what they've really brought to music. Is that a bad thing? No, if you like it, good for you, but I wouldn't pay money to see it, and I still won't. What do I think of the death of Motley Crue? The death of Motley Crue came a long time ago. Just because they're wrapping it up after this tour doesn't make them any more alive than they were, you know, a long time ago. I've always found Motley Crue to be supremely overrated. I think it's a band, much like the way I feel about Kiss. I would like to say that they're a band very much fenced in by their theatrics and their image. But when in reality you realize they're fenced in by the limited songwriting capability, like Kiss has always been limited by fenced in by the limited songwriting capability of Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons. Much like Motley Crue has always been hemmed in by the limited songwriting capability of Nikki Sixx. No one will tell this cat that to his face. They may have done it while he was in a fucking heroin coma. But yeah, Nikki Sixx, you can't write songs. And I'm going to go with my buddy Razorfist, who summed it up better than I ever could when he said that the death of Motley Crue, the end of Motley Crue, just simply means more 6 a.m. And if you don't know what 6 a.m. is, not the Dream Theater song, then you're probably better off. Kip171 wants to know who's more badass, Godzilla or the Megazord from Power Rangers. Megazord is a bitch. Dragonzord trumps Megazord, but Mechagodzilla trumps Dragonzord all fucking day long. So all shall tremble before the mighty Mechagodzilla. Let me see. I know that I missed a couple of questions. So if I didn't answer your question, please drop another line, because I know I missed something and I'm tired of screwing with this thing that's not working. What else? Let me see here. Hold on a second. Vampiro is doing commentary on Lucha Underground. I can't imagine that's terribly awful. And for those of you that think Michael Cole is awful, you're right. But you have obviously are not familiar with future stars of pro wrestling out of Las Vegas. They have commentary from the Disco Inferno. And Disco Inferno, pretty decent worker. I've heard a piss poor idea, man, when it comes to booking. But even worse as a commentator. Doesn't know how to come off as a heel. Just terrible. And Michael Cole, I wouldn't call Michael Cole terrible. I would call Michael Cole non-existent. If you could say that Tony Schiavone was a very vanilla commentator, Michael Cole is a very Aquafina commentator. You know, not only is he as flavorless as water, it's not even good water. It's good water that comes in a pretty package to try and convince you that it's tasty, when in fact it's fucking tap water with a label on it. That's Michael Cole. Tap water with a fucking fancy label on it. You know, I don't care. No matter how bland a person is, you put them in a fucking Armani suit, it's not going to change the fact that you're dealing with, you know, bland ass fried chicken. Let me see here. Thad Cleachill is asking if I'm a fan of the power metal band Camelot. I'm not a fan. I listen to Camelot, but I wouldn't call myself a fan. A good friend of mine, my good friend Kevin, I was going to give his last name away, but I shouldn't do that. Kevin, Kevy Metal, I like to call him, and he wants to beat me up every time I say that, but fuck you, I'm on YouTube and you're not, Kevin, so I get to say things and you don't get to rebut. I call them panty waist metal, just because those guys, they bitch and complain about everything, but they write some pretty catchy, pretty thick-ass songs. When I say thick, I mean really heavy studio production. So Camelot's, you know, it's good to listen to. If it didn't have lyrics, it'd be great for a D&D game. So that's my opinion on Camelot. Great band. You know, I commonly hear people who want to tell me about their musicianship, and I don't feel that any of them really stand out on their own as instrumentalists, but they you know, they do what they can, and they write pretty catchy songs. So, you know, and good for them. Let me see here. Snazzy Snozborn wants to talk about the cage match again, about Meatloaf versus Yngwie Malmsteen. I've already talked about this. Both of them being, you know, very heavy old men with heart conditions, wouldn't be able to ascend a steel cage, so they just have to merge forces and become Yngloaf. Let me see here. Frosty Tim wants to know, are there any albums, metal or otherwise, you're anticipating for 2015? No, not a one, not a goddamn thing. Something that I did stumble across, though, was some... I found an old Evergrade DVD that I had. Inside, if you guys are familiar with the distribution of prog metal or progressive rock or jazz fusion in this country, a great work is being done by the people at Inside Out International. They have a lot to do with the Prague Power Festival in Atlanta, Georgia every year. And I found this insert that they used to put in all of their releases. I think they still do. In that DVD. And I just started going, now you kids don't understand how great it is that now you have, I sound like an old man when I say that, to go on YouTube and just punch in a name of a band, a name of an album, and boom, there it is. You can listen to it and you can hear it. It used to be you'd have to go to a record store, a bookstore or something, and hopefully the fucking kiosk was working and you could do these things. It was hard to do that. And now I'm finding all this music that I missed from years ago. And it's great. So any albums coming out this year? No, not that I'm aware. None. And I'm not really that up on the new music that's coming out because, you know, the internet is saturated with music. So I can't think of anyone I'm really excited to hear from. And since a lot of, you know, rock and roll, a lot of music doesn't come to this part of the country anymore, it's hard to be excited about it. It really is. What are truly holy rune? Truly holy. What are some games that you want but are too expensive? You know, I have this bad habit of when I see games that are just the prices are just too high. It's like fuck that. I'll come back. There are other games. Same way I feel about music. I don't see a point in you know putting a premium on certain releases because, like, to me, most new modern releases, $60 plus all the goddamn DLC is too expensive. So most games are too expensive nowadays. So if it's too expensive, I just kind of look the other way. I know that's kind of an anticlimactic answer to your question, but I don't gauge my collection, or I don't gauge games in terms of monetary value anymore because it doesn't matter. So, you know, but I would love to play every video game in history if I could. So yeah. Psycho DX wants to know if I've ever heard of Kalma. Yes, I have. I have a couple of Kalma albums actually. And if I could sum it up in 2 words, ear fatigue. They're a great band with some really great melodic sensibilities. Their records are hard to listen to because the production is just like you're being hit with a brick wall repeatedly. But very talented dudes in Kalma. And I think they come from Israel, I think. So a lot of metal coming from Eastern Europe and Western Asia. Let me see here. Everybody's talking about how old I am. I'm not going to tell you how old I am. You get to guess. I'm married, so that's kind of a dead giveaway that I'm at least 18 years old. Of course, that changes throughout the world, I found out. So, Luis Rosa wants to know my feelings about Symphony X. I love Symphony X. The last few records have left something to be desired, but you know, I've seen Symphony X in concert a number of times, and they always bring it. Every time. Every time. I've seen them at least 3 or 4 times, and every time they bring it. Let me see. Kid171 wants to know if Color a Dinosaur is the hidden treasure of the NES library, the lamest game for it. It's probably one of the lamest games ever. It's not a game. It's a I don't know who thought that was a good idea. Like, you could buy your kid a coloring book for 99 cents in 1992, or you could buy them a $60 fucking game that's not even really coloring. I don't know who thought that was a good idea. Probably the same people that thought that Chase the Chuck Wagon on the Atari 2600 was a great idea. So there's that. And then Dylan8837 wants to know, there are guys who will pay through the nose for the first presses of albums. Yeah, and it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Also, the people paying extra for the new vinyl, when new vinyl is actually just CD on vinyl. You know, it's digitally mastered stuff onto a vinyl, completely defeating the purpose of a vinyl, except to sell you a disc, you know, with a pretty picture on it. Let me see here. Kamar from Finland. I'm sorry. I am terribly sorry. Just like my great-grandmother from Finland. That's right. Fuck. Well, they come from the holy land of heavy metal. Finland, if you didn't know, in fact, there's a documentary out there called "The Promised Land of Heavy Metal." And it's about Finland. In Finland, heavy metal, this niche genre, this niche interest that we're talking about, is the fucking mainstream. You know, and like I say, I want to go to Finland. You'll get bored of it. People leave Finland for that very reason. It's just like, you know, being bombarded with rap music on the West Coast in the 1990s. You'll get tired of it. Yes, you will. Don't argue with me. Because just because metal is in the mainstream doesn't mean it's good metal. Don't forget, that's the country where Sonata Arctica comes from. And nothing against those guys, but they desperately want to be a bunch of pussbag Americans, and I wish they'd, you know, stick to what makes them special, which is, I don't know, they're kind of like the power metal boy band, aren't they? And good for them. Let me see here. True Holy Room wants to know, what games do you enjoy but is a huge game? Do you mean in size? Well, all the Zelda games are huge. I love those. It's always a chore to get to the end of them. Not all of them. Some of them are shorter than others. But huge game. I don't know. You have to give me a definition of what does or does not constitute a huge game. Do you think the Atari of now or the past is more incompetent? I've never considered you could really gauge that, because, see, the Atari that we deal with now is just some company that bought the Atari name and is licensing the games to Denny's and shit. The Atari that you're thinking of is actually not Atari, but was Warner Communications. And just like most corporations who do very well, you know, they get credit for being brilliant if you think of somebody who fell into a stream that was full of gold, you could hardly call them brilliant. You know, I think they just stumbled across the right thing and had the money to build a machine to make it go. You know, Atari was a beautiful example of, you know, I guess you'd say like a beautiful hot rod with no engine in it and no fuel to make it go. Warner Communications was the engine, the machine with the fuel and the fire to make it go, which is, of course, what I mean is money. So incompetent, who in the gaming industry really is competent? You know, really a lot of people, you know, no one is infallible. You know, I know that I sing the praises of Nintendo on a regular basis, but they fuck up all the time. You know, I'm pretty sure somewhere, especially Nintendo of America, somewhere in Redmond, Washington, somebody is managing to fuck things up right now. And then they'll come up with one cool thing that I'll like. And I'm like, oh, well, okay, fine, but I'm not going to buy it. You know, that's what we've really come to. Dylan wants to know, have I listened to the new Black Dahlia Murder album? I don't care for them. For me, I've got a couple of their albums, and that was enough. They all kind of sound the same. You know, I know they've tried to go more of a black metal slant over the years, but really a black metal slant without the satanic imagery means nothing. It's just fast punk influenced thrash metal with really type vocals. You know, black metal without the Satanism, without the evil connotations, without the imagery is not black metal. It doesn't really mean anything. You know, all those chords and, you know, you're really describing symphonic metal that really enjoys the flat fifth harmonic, you know, the flat fifth diminished harmonic interval. That's really what it is. Black metal without the imagery is not black metal. And when it's done by, you know, metal hardcore bands from the United States, it's even more diluted and doesn't matter. C-Vania fan for life wants to know what amiibos that I want. Whatever I can get, whatever, you know, whatever's cheap. I don't care. I think that the functionality is really cute, and you know, I think that they're very handsome. But I just, you know, if I go into Target and they're selling them for $5, hell yeah, Kaos is going to wind up with some amiibos, or amiibo. I guess it's amiibo plural, just like ninja plural. So if I stumble across it, cool. If I don't, I don't. You know, I like video games. The toys that accessorize along with the video games, don't care so much. That's why I never really got swept up by the little model chips they sold at GameStop. Also, because I don't shop at GameStop unless they're giving things away for like $1 or something. And I've seen them. If you got an Xbox 360 and you're starting to collect for the Xbox 360, go to your GameStop. You can get games for like 49 cents. I'm not kidding. Let me see here. Kit171 wants to know, what are the best headphones you have ever used? The best headphones I have ever used were Sony studio monitors. My dad had a pair, I think still does have a pair of Sony studio monitors, and spent a lot of money. I think it was like $200 for a set of headphones. And I didn't get what was so great about them. And then, you know, later on as a teenager, I got to use them and I was like, wow, these are really good. The only ones I've ever thought that were better were the Roland, I think they're the SP300 studio cans, but they're really expensive. And I've never used them to listen to music. I've listened to with playing a synthesizer, and they're very full range, but they're really, 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 really expensive. Just like, I mean, you know, Roland products are expensive. They're usually really good stuff, but you're going to pay for it, you know. Similar to like, you know, like a Lexus or, you know, those luxury brands. Yeah, you're getting a lot, but you're going to pay for it. True Holy Rune wants to know if I'm excited about the new River City Ransom game. I didn't know there was a new River City Ransom game coming out. You've piqued my interest. I'm excited. I'm gonna type that in. In fact, if somebody knows more about that than me, please drop it on my Facebook or hit me up on Twitter or something and let me know, because I'm curious about that. I'm very curious about that. Let me see here. Fatality 65 wants to know, should more metal bands do video game soundtracks? No. No, 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 no. A lot of metal bands have done a lot of video game soundtracks, and most of them are mediocre at best. The two just don't work. You know, heavy metal is more an attitude than it is a musical style. You'll notice that with like a lot of Motorhead records. A lot of Motorhead records sound different from each other, but they're still called metal because the attitude is there. Metal is more of an attitude than it is, you know, you could describe it a number of ways, but it's mostly attitude, you know, and technique as opposed to a particular sound. Let me see here. And I heard about the new Wonder Boy game. I'm gonna wait till someone. I don't know why I should care about a new Wonder Boy game. Sega's in deep shit, and they need to come out with something fancy really quick. Let me see here. I lost my place. Are you guys talking about action figures now? I don't know what's going on. Anyway, Cliff Fitter wants to know, what do I think about Sony's expensive $1,000 Walkman? I heard about that, and it's a great idea and everything, but it reminds me very much of what a lot of musical instrument producers are doing these days. They are doing their best to appeal to a high-end, a boutique user. And I don't know a lot of people that are busting their balls to have, you know, because the high-end music connoisseur, the high-end music listener and user is listening to vinyl. They're not listening to MP3s on a really expensive device. So I don't know who that's real. I mean, it'll appeal to somebody, you know, but what they're trying to find a balance. It's similar to like what I think that Lexus and Toyota were, Toyota, Lexus, and Honda Acura were doing in the last few years. They keep looking for these demographics that don't exist, like young rich people. I know very few young rich people, and very few young rich people are going to look for a value-minded Lexus or Acura. They're going to buy a real luxury car like a Bentley or a Rolls Royce. Similarly with Sony, again, they're and a lot with what video games are doing right now. is they're trying to appeal to demographics that either are thin or just plain do not exist. And that can be, while great for your personal art form, horrendous for one's bank account. And if we're going to talk about how this is a business, you know, drawing money is key. So making expensive products for people who want to fritter away money, that's never been the key to anybody's success. One more, and then I'm going to get out of here. Some people are saying, Lone Wolf Warrior wants to say, some people are saying Sega will be dead in a few years. If they don't turn this shit around, yeah. As with Capcom and a lot of the major Japanese publishers, because, like I was just talking about, how people, companies trying to appeal to demographics that don't exist. These companies have stayed too long trying to appeal to demographics that have gotten up and left. Similar to the way that professional wrestling keeps trying to appeal to the wrestling fan of the 1990s, when those people are now mommies and daddies who don't watch television because they've got families of their own to deal with. You know, so that's the way I feel about that. I'm gonna get a couple more, and then we'll get out of here, because I've been around for far too long. C-Vania fan for life wants to know if I ever listened to the F-Zero X Silence theme Dream Chaser in my car, and if so, has your speed increased? I listen to the Jet Moto soundtrack and the F-Zero soundtracks all the time in my car, and yes, it does make me go faster. I've never gotten in trouble, but I have noticed, yeah, it got a little quick. I'm like, oh, I should knock that off. So, let me see here. Dylan wants to know my favorite part of the Pantera Vulgar Videos collection. It's funny that I guess you knew that I have that. And anybody who's into, if you ever want to throw a heavy metal party, it's stupid that this thing doesn't have a play all feature, but if you ever want, or maybe it does, if you ever want to have a big heavy metal party, what you need is, like, you know, a 30-pack of beer, a bottle of whiskey. The cheapest kind is best. Most people will bitch out and go for Fireball, but the bitches are into that sort of thing. So if you want, you know, bitches around, then have Fireball or Jägermeister, and throw on the Pantera 3 DVD, the Pantera Vulgar Videos collection, and you have yourself a heavy metal party on your hands. Honestly, and make sure you have a few people, and you'll have a party on your hands. My favorite. He's talking about Dimebag Darrell pissing off Yngwie Malmsteen. Yngwie Malmsteen's not hard to piss off. My favorite part is in Pantera 3, where they're bus driver, Natural Born Wiggins, talking about, you know, what he wears his multicolored hair, and it's really popular amongst the Dracone guys and myself. They're talking about, I can't remember, I think it's Dimebag who's filming him, you know, working with a tire or something. He's like, hey, I remember when you used to climb up under that sumbitch. He's like, I still do. Don't want to fuck my damn hair up. That's like the funniest part. It's kind of an inside joke to all of us guys. Like, does it look fucked up? Did they fuck my damn hair up? You know, that's really funny amongst us guys. And when you watch the video, it'll be really funny to you too. Anyway, oh, and is Danzig an asshole? I've met Glenn Danzig, and no, here's something that's really tough, and I want you guys to think about this. Think about all the times that somebody who you've met for the first time probably thinks you're a fucking prick because you were tired or sleepy and you said something to them that you probably didn't mean, or, you know, you were, you know what I mean? And think about that and try and think of someone where they base their entire opinion about you on the 5 seconds that they've interfaced with you, or, you know, the people that try and judge me as a person based on what I do here on YouTube. You know, you guys get to see me for 1 hour a week. That leaves me with hundreds of hours left with myself and with other people. So if you try and base all of us, all those people on YouTube based on just this interaction, that's unhealthy. But is Danzig an asshole? I met Glenn Danzig in East Los Angeles on Olvera Street, the marketplace on Olvera Street. And a good friend of mine, old friend of mine, Mark Perez, a bass player for me for a very, very long time. We were teenagers, and we were with his parents, and we were there's one restaurant there. I can't remember what it's called. And we were eating tacos. And walking past goes fucking Glenn Danzig. And Mark goes, was that Glenn Danzig? And he's walking with this woman who's almost like a foot taller than him. And I go, yeah, I mean, is Danzig? And he had heels on too. I'm like, is he a little guy? And we didn't remember, this is before the internet was as prevalent. So you didn't know, you couldn't like look on your phone to see, if that was them. And Mark tries to get his attention. He's like, Glenn. And Glenn's like, hey, how you guys doing? And he's like, he just waved and he said hello. And of course I did the, and my buddy Mark, puts his hand over my mouth and says, shut the fuck up. You're going to embarrass me in front of Glenn Danzig. I'm like, you're never going to see Glenn Danzig again. And Danzig kind of looks over his shoulder and he had a smirk on his face. And, he was just walking, just being a regular person, but he waved and he was nice and he said hello. He didn't hide from us or anything. So is Glenn Danzig an asshole? Probably. I mean, that was almost 20 years ago. But he was nice and he waved at us. So, there's that. Anyway, folks, I thank you guys for stopping by. And I hope you had a great time. I hope to see you next time right here on Monday Night Chaos or Chaos Tonight, whatever it happens to be. So I want to remind you that I'm Yellkaos. Please follow me. There's all the information down there. Check me out on the Facebook. Check me out on the Twitter and all that stuff. And if you want me on Instagram or somewhere else, please make a case because I can't figure it out. So, yeah, there's that. I really hope that you guys had a great time. Also, yes, new episodes of the Hate It Podcast coming as soon as I can get some talent ready. So thank you very much. You guys have been great, and I am Yellkaos. I am running for president, and I hope I can count on your vote in 2020. Thank you very much. You guys are great, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.